Welcome to the Fanart Case, a new series here on the channel. As you may be aware, I'm an artist as well as a gamer. I've done my fair share of art streams recently, and I figured it was about time to try my hand at some videos. We're starting off with a set of videos over a full cover design project of what may genuinely be my absolute favorite series here on YouTube. Naked and Scared is an ultra-hardcore Minecraft series by Impulse SV and MC Skizzleman on their shared channel, Imp and Skizz. There are currently 26 seasons, and if you're not familiar with this series, I genuinely cannot recommend it highly enough. Today, we're going to be designing a full set of art for Season 1. If you haven't seen it, there's a link to the playlist in the card coming up right about now. I highly suggest checking it out, since I'm going to be spoiling it in this video. And also just because, you know, it's kind of amazing. But go watch it. One thing you should notice here, looking at my template, is that I have spots for a disc, a case, and a booklet. What I do not have are thumbnails, even though it's a YouTube series, because that series already has thumbnails, and they're very good thumbnails. If you couldn't tell from the title, Naked and Scared is a parody of the survival show Naked and Afraid, which, fun fact, I actually was not familiar with prior to finding this series. What can I say, I don't watch much TV. At its core, this series is a survival challenge. Impulse and Skizz attempt to survive in ultra-hardcore. For those unfamiliar, this game mode means there's no natural health regeneration and no respawn, while completing a challenge, all under a 21 game day time limit. Sounds fun, right? Actually, try it sometime. I guarantee you, it is a lot harder than it looks. Season 1 was played in version 1.6.2 and began on August 13th, 2013. The final video was published on the 28th of that same month. For those who aren't aware, I only got into Minecraft itself in late 2020, and I didn't discover this series until about a year later. This remains the only series that has ever managed to drag me 8 years back into the early days cringe of a creator's archive because I enjoyed it so much. And coming from someone with extreme secondhand embarrassment, that's kinda saying something. I'm not gonna lie, the cringe is real in the first few seasons, but that's kinda to be expected from something this early in the learning curve of content creation, and even then, it has its own charm. The presentation might not be as polished as it gets, and the players may not be as practiced in surviving ultra-hardcore, but they're clearly having fun, which is really the most important part for an enjoyable watching experience. At the very beginning, they do kind of have a bit going where they pretend they don't know each other, which is a little rough when it comes to a series that lives and dies on the friendship dynamic of its creators, but once they really get started on the challenge, that fades out and it is all good. The challenge for Season 1 was a relatively tame one. Collect one of each color of wool block. Hopefully, you can see the inspiration for my design choices there. And for anyone unfamiliar, the guy at the front here with the torch is Impulse, and the guy at the back with the bow is Skizz. It will get easier to tell them apart once I get some colors in. I did try to keep their designs a little different, but that's really hard to do in a style like this. Speaking of the style, you might have noticed this is nowhere near my usual one, and it's also not one I have much experience with, so hopefully we'll see some improvement through the series. I actually put together this style specifically for this project because I wanted something cute and simple and would reflect the blocky nature of Minecraft's graphics. Instead, I somehow wound up stumbling onto the My Sims style. Seriously, look it up. We're going to be getting a bit into spoiler territory here, so here's your last chance to pause and go check out the series if you haven't already. Or even if you have and just want to watch it again, which is so valid. Welcome back. Now, the challenge this season is simple compared to some of the others, but not quite as simple as it sounds. Only 6 colors of wool can be obtained directly from naturally spawned sheep. The rest have to be dyed, and to find the materials for that, you have to travel. Now, these guys had ridiculous luck this season, so pretty much immediately after leaving the swamp they spawned in, they run into not just a jungle, but a jungle temple. Of course, cocoa beans for the brown dye are everywhere in the jungle, and there were bones in the temple for white dye. With the jungle conquered, the only thing standing in their way is the color green, which means it's time to hunt for a desert. And their luck continues to be a thing, because almost immediately, what do they run into? a desert. No, they didn't pick out a seed beforehand, they just got very, very, very lucky. It's my personal theory that they used up all of their luck on the first season and have been paying for it ever since. And with the actual task completed, they have, in fact, won the season. And with the quick review of this short season, we now return you to spoiler-free territory. And here is the point where I make the biggest mistake in the entire piece and draw one entire neck. It does not really fit in. I didn't notice that until super late when I couldn't really fix it, but that's okay, we're learning. One thing I'm really proud of in this entire drawing is the way this bow and arrow came out. Every iteration of sketch and line on this bow and this arrow, I love. Now, right about this point, you and I are going to play a little game. It's called We Are Not Even Going to Pretend These Blocks Are Stacked in Any Kind of Reasonable Way. There's no real balance. They would probably be a mess all over the floor. I don't care. It looks cute. We're doing it. That was, in fact, me counting every single cube, so we could make sure we could, in fact, fit one and only one of every color of wool into this stack. Because, you know, theming. One thing I really think shows in this piece is that I am, first and foremost, a character artist. I'm trying to work on that and get better at my backgrounds and environments, but they've got a lot of catching up to do, so the characters tend to be better than anything else. Of course, this is a whole new style of character, so I think it kind of evens out here. Let's just see how it goes as we continue making these covers. With the line art done, we finally get to move on to some coloring, which is, honestly, my favorite part. Yes, you did just see me snag the color palettes for the characters right out of the actual Minecraft skins and YouTube icons. Resources, use what you got. So it was at this point I realized I never actually moved Skizz's head in this image to a point where it was actually attached to his body and not just floating nebulously behind his shoulder. So we gotta fix that. My dude is not the Headless Horseman. And here we go. Simplified style, not an excuse to not have body blush. At this point, I was actually on a different screen, looking up a screenshot from the actual episode to make sure I got the wool blocks on this wall in the correct order, because I'm that kind of nerd. This is one of my favorite ways to do a nighttime scene, where you've got everything covered by a multiply layer with a dark bluish color, and then you got a light source where you erase out little tiny bits of rim lighting. Gotta love it. Everywhere else we've got some pretty simple cell shading, which I don't normally do. I usually go for soft shading, but in this case it seemed like it fit the cartoony style a bit better, so cell shading it is. And here you can see me try about 5 different styles of shading these quartz blocks before I find one I actually like. It was not behaving. I know they don't actually have this sharp, intense of a bevel in the game, but it looks nice. I like it. So we use it. One thing I forgot to mention before now is the template itself. All of these items are actually real sized. So the case is the size of an actual disc case, including the width of the spine. Disc is the right size for a disc. Booklet would fit in the case, all of that. So you can see one of the discs on my template here is grayed out. That is because I actually looked at the length of each season, compared it to the amount of video that will fit on a disc, and estimated how many discs you would actually need if you were going to make discs of that season. So this season is short enough, it only needs a single disc, so we're only designing one disc. In the future, when we have longer seasons, we're going to be designing as many discs as would be needed to contain that much video. So I did draw this logo at an earlier date. Unfortunately, I did not record that process because I am a genius. I do really like the way it came out, though it may need some updating with some smoother lettering when I can actually figure out how to do that. Yes, I completely made up this tiny little Imp and Skiz logo. I think it's cute. I needed something that would fit on the spine, which is very, very narrow. As you can see here, I just decided the back cover would look better flipped facing out, so that on both covers they are facing away from the spine. It felt a little neater. Pretty much the rest of this video is going to be me doing lettering, undoing lettering, redoing lettering, and more of the same. And I can already tell this project is going to be really good for my hand lettering skills. If you can't tell, I have not done a whole bunch of lettering before. I am learning. I'm liking how it's coming out so far, but looking forward to seeing some improvements there. This bit in particular is the series description that plays at the start of every episode. I thought it would make a fun back cover for the booklet. There's still a few tweaks to make, but that's most of the art done. Y'all, I have been wanting to do this for over a year, and I finally just got to a point where I went, you know what? I'm doing it. Sorry if things are a little bit janky. I am definitely still at the start of my learning curve for art videos, but man, I had a blast working on it. Speaking of, I am intending to do the rest of the seasons. Yes, I do mean the remaining 25 seasons. I do have thumbnail sketches for about half of them. I'm not sure when exactly I will have the next one out. These do take a while. This one was about 12 hours of drawing, condensed down into 15-ish minutes of video. Hopefully I'll be able to get one done every couple of weeks, but I am not going to put a hard timeline on myself with everything else I've got going on right now. With that out of the way, let's take a look at the final product. That has been the first episode of the Fanart Case. I will see y'all next time. Bye-bye.